Hi, I'm Tom Laskowski. I'm the Director of Midwest Native Skills, and welcome to our every other Thursday live streaming on Facebook. We're here, and today we're going to be talking about the emergency food preservation. But before we get started on that topic, just want to let you know that we still have a few openings in this weekend's upcoming homesteading class. Unfortunately, our canning class is full. We do have a few openings for Saturday afternoon for candle making, and we have openings in our wine making and cheese making. That would be Sunday morning for wine making and Sunday afternoon for cheese making. And next week, March 20th, our soap making class is also full. We'll be having other classes this fall in those same topics, so if you're interested. But we're always available for private classes on all of our topics. So if you're really dying to make soap or cheese or wine, give us a call and we can arrange for a private class just for you, or you and your friend, or you and your family. So, as always, please let us know who's out there. I always like to know who's watching so I can feel more connected with you. And also your questions. That's what makes this fun for me. If I can answer your questions directly rather than just me sitting here and tell you what I think you want to know. So I might not know all the answers, but give it a shot. Especially when we're talking about food preservation. If you have any ideas of yourself, I'd like to share them with our other members of the audience, and you're probably going to have me learn something new too. So let's make it interactive. So please type in, if you're listening, who you are, where you're from, if you're new, and if you have any questions or any ideas of yourself. So make sure you do that. Where to get started? Let's get started real simply. If you're storing food for an emergency, the easiest, most simple way to do that is you're going to be getting some food from the grocery store. Now, I go out and I give some seminars on home preparation for emergencies. And some of the questions I get are, the most common one is, what kind of food should I store? And my typical answer is, store the food you like. I mean, if you read these books, they'll say, okay, you should be storing beans or rice or whatever. Well, if you don't like beans, don't store beans. It's pretty common sense. But a few things you might want to consider. The next time you go to the store and they have tuna fish for sale. Now, I personally like Star-Kissed tuna fish. It tastes better to me than the Bumblebee. So when we look for it on sale, and I'll buy 10 cans of it, 15 cans of it, and we'll put it on our pantry shelves, and we'll just store it there, and we'll use it. The key to storing food like that is you have to rotate it. So that's the hard part of storing food. Because when you put it on the shelf, if you store it, stack it in a row, naturally you're going to put the cans in and stack it out. You're going to be real inclined when you need a can of tuna fish to take the first one, and then the back one is going to be hard to get to, so it gets neglected, and that's going to be the oldest. So it'd be great if you had a way to get behind these shelves and always take the back one always. So that's the challenge to storing food. But tuna fish, canned chicken, beans, anything you like, macaroni and cheese. But when you're storing things, you need to put it in a container, especially like macaroni and cheese. Or if you're going to store rice, the minute rice, we have containers full of minute rice. Flour, sugar. They say the 5 things that are best in an emergency for trade items are sugar, tobacco, alcohol, toilet paper, and what's the fifth one, Cheryl? Sugar, tobacco, alcohol, toilet paper, and coffee. Those 5. They're always trade items. And you're probably sitting there, no, nobody smokes anymore. When people get under stress, they're going to start smoking again. So, okay, so what do you store these in so the little critters don't get into them? Well, 5-gallon buckets are a great thing to store things in, but what kind of lid do you put on them? Well, there's something called a gamma lid, G-A-M-M-A. And this is a gamma lid. You can buy these separately, just Google gamma lid. And you can buy these for about $5 or $6. They have a rim like this that'll snap on any 5 or 6 gallon bucket. So you just press this on your 5 or 6 gallon bucket, and this has a ring around here. This one's white, and it'll spin right on, and it'll give you a nice tight seal. If you want to buy this only for your buckets that you have, you can. Or for maybe $10 or $12, you can buy the entire bucket with the gamma lid attached. I use this for my beekeeping, and this is a honey spigot, so that's why the spigot's on the bottom. But it's got a lot more uses than just storing things. So, spins on, spins off. So these gamma lids are real nice because the press-on ones are kind of a pain to take off. They're a pain to put on, and you don't have this nice rubber seal to make sure that everything's sealed inside. Now, a lot of places will recommend that if you're putting rice in here or anything, they'll tell you that oxygen is your enemy, and that's true. So they say you want to get all the oxygen out, so they'll sell you nitrogen packs. You put nitrogen packs in here with your food, put the lid on, and the nitrogen will expel, pushing the oxygen out, so you have a nitrogen-filled bucket, which will make your food last 10, 20, 30 times longer. Good idea. It works just fine. Problem is the nitrogen packs are kind of expensive. There's a cheaper way to do it. All you have to do is get a piece of dry ice about this big. So what you do, you put your food inside here, put your little chunk of dry ice, which is carbon dioxide, frozen carbon dioxide, on top here, and put the lid on loosely. Now what's going to happen, carbon dioxide is heavier than air. So that piece of ice, dry ice, is going to melt, but it doesn't go into a liquid form, it goes right into gas. So that carbon dioxide gas, since it's heavier than air, is going to go to the bottom. It's going to fill this entire bucket up with carbon dioxide, pushing all the oxygen out. And the next day, you're going to have your bucket full of carbon dioxide. All you do is tighten the lid down all the way to make a seal. And now you have no oxygen in your bucket. It's full of carbon dioxide, and your food will last just as if you had the nitrogen in there. So that's a cheap way of pushing all the oxygen and having your food preserved a long time. So the gamma lids are a great idea, and like I said, it's great for storage, for emergencies, but you can get these buckets and you can store grass seed in here, you can store whatever you want, and it's easy to get to. All you have to do is unspin the lid. So these gamma lids are a great idea. Like I said, if you store food you get from the store, find out what your family likes, make a meal plan so you can go get the food on sale. So you're buying food when it's on sale, using it, and then the next time it's on sale, you can replenish it. We have somebody out there?
We have lots of people.
Oh, who?
So Frankie is on.
Hey, Frank.
Paul from Scotland is on.
Hey, Paul.
Teresa. Tom.
Hi, Teresa.
Nathaniel is on.
Nathaniel, I'm not sure if he's been on before. Hi, Nathaniel. Okay, we're still at the grocery store. We want to buy some meat. Let's think how we can preserve meat. A couple ways. I said our canning class is full, but canning is a great way to do it. Because if you store it in your refrigerator, that's another dependency. You're dependent on the electricity to stay on. The electricity goes out, you could lose everything in your refrigerator. Here we have chicken that we've canned. Canning in mason jars is pretty easy. There's two ways to can. I'm not going to get into all the technical details, but there's the hot water bath method and pressure canning. But to give you a brief summary on how to do meat, all you do is you take the meat, this was chicken, you cut it up into cubes, you stuff it into the mason jar. Make sure the mason jar is sanitary, clean, so you put it in hot water, boiling water for a few minutes, make sure it's clean. Stuff the meat in, as much meat as you can put in here. You don't have to put any seasonings or anything. Put the lid on, and you put it in a pressure cooker, and you put the lid on, and keep it in the pressure cooker at 10 pounds of pressure for 45 minutes. Turn the heat off. When the pressure cooker cools down, take the cans out. It's done. When it cools off, you put it on the shelf. That's all there is to it. There's nothing to add, and that's what it looks like when it's done. It makes its own juice, and the meat's cooked, it's sealed, it's ready to use. And what we do is we season it when we use it. So this will last 5-6 years on the shelf. Shouldn't last that long because you're always reusing it. You're using it constantly. So the object of canning the food isn't to see how long it lasts. It's to have it without refrigeration, and you just keep turning your stock over. Do the same thing with jellies and jams. And the same thing, these are jalapenos that we grew in our garden, with fruit, peaches, applesauce. Cheryl likes to can. So you can do all of this just with canning. So you can have a nice garden, all the excess, you just can. That's one way to do it. So that's what we do with a lot of our meat, especially if you're a hunter and get a deer. One deer you can put in the freezer. If you get 2 deer, can most of it. The other thing, if you find meat on sale, probably want to buy one of these, a dehydrator. Now there's a couple ways to dehydrate meat or to dry meat, but let me dispel a big myth about drying meat. Most people will think about all the pictures you saw maybe out on the prairie where you saw a tripod with a rack on it and meat hanging down there. What were they doing there? They were drying meat. But a lot of people have this picture of it being in smoke. So naturally you think, well, they're smoking the meat to preserve it. That's wrong. The correct way to dry meat with that tripod in that setting is you cut your meat up extremely thin, you hang it on the rack, and then you put this tripod in the smoke of the fire, but not near the heat. If you put heat on the meat, you're cooking the meat. It's just like cooking it on your stove. So it's only going to last a day or two. So you want to put the meat in the smoke, away from the fire. Now you're not smoking the meat at this time either. All the smoke does is it keeps the flies away. You don't want flies landing on your meat, laying eggs and maggots. We don't have to go into that. But you don't want the flies to land on your meat. So in about a half hour, the meat will get a crust on it. After it crusts over in that 30 minutes or so, flies won't want to land on it. So after that 30 minutes, the smoke did its job of keeping the flies away. Now you take that tripod, you carry it away from the fire, and you put it in the sun. Now the sun's going to do the job of drying the meat. So that's the correct way of smoking meat. So the smoke doesn't have anything to do with preserving the meat. Its only job is to keep flies away. So the idea of putting the meat in the sun is we want to remove all the moisture out of the meat. Bacteria and things need about 17 to 20% moisture to live. So we want to get that moisture content of the meat down below that. In fact, we want to get it down to 0 theoretically if we can. So that's one way to do it. Cut your meat extremely thin and hang it, put it out, make sure the flies stay away. If you do it in the early spring when there's no flies, you can skip the step altogether about the smoke of fire. A couple other ways to do it. You can put those thin strips in your oven, keep it on the lowest setting of your oven, and crack the door open. And you can make dry meat that way, make beef jerky or whatever. You can use a dehydrator, and that's what I prefer. They cost around $100. This happens to be a American Harvest. Nesco is the company. It's got a dial on here that's going to set the temperature in the dehydrator, and basically all it's doing, it's drawing air through. It's got a little heating element, a fan and a heating element, drawing warm air through over your whatever you put in here. And so it's got 3 different types of racks on it. This is your main rack that you would put your meat on. It's got all these slots so the air passes through. So you'd lay your meat on here. Your meat would be big enough, it wouldn't fall through. It's got a rack like this if you're going to dry something a lot smaller and it might fall through these cracks. And this one is called a roll-up maker, one of my favorites. You put this on there, and this you could put something like an applesauce on and dry it, and in about 5 or 6 hours it's going to be like a leather roll-up. And I do this when I go hunting all the time. I just take a cinnamon flavored applesauce, spread it on here. In about 5 hours you peel it off, you can roll it up, and I just put it in my backpack, and when I'm up in the tree stand or whatever, take it out and just kind of munch on it. So you can do that. You can make apple squares, banana. You can dry it, almost anything. But for meat, it's fantastic. It takes probably, depends how thin you slice your meat, maybe 12 hours, maybe so a day, maybe 2 days to really dry the meat real dry. Now remember, you want to get it dry. The beef jerky you buy in the store is not dried all the way. It's about half done. And if you look on the back, you'll see it has tons of preservatives in it, because if it didn't, it would get moldy. They do that because real beef jerky is like dry like shoe leather. You have to keep it in your mouth for maybe 5 or 10 minutes to get enough moisture so you can actually chew it. You want to get all the moisture out. That's true beef jerky. But when it's that dry, it'll last without any type of refrigeration, without any kind of preservation, forever. Again, you want to get all the water out of the meat. That's why when they used to have salt bacon, that's what the salt did. It pulled all the water out. So that's the key. We want to get all the water out, because that, with no water, bacteria can't grow. So dehydrator is definitely the way to go. Like I said, about $100. Okay, our next step, everybody's heard about MREs, and the big joke was, oh my God, they taste terrible. Back Vietnam era MREs did taste terrible. They came up with new, and by the way, MRE stands for Meals Ready to Eat, MRE. I just purchased this one. They run about $9 a piece, and they're a complete meal. This is the rations they give to our military personnel, and this one happens to be chili with beans, and it's got an inspection date. Theoretically, they last for probably 7 to 10 years or longer. So we're going to open this and let's see what's actually in this package here.
While you're doing that, Paul says in Scotland their go-to for preserving meat is salting. Especially in the West Isles, fish has been stored that way for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Ah. And I'm sure they use non-iodized salt. And they don't, they salt fish rather than meat. Takes a while to get the answer, probably. Mm-hmm. I have to go and spend a week or 2 with him. It's got to be in my schedule. Okay, we took all the contents out. And let's see what we have here. Okay, MREs. This is our hot beverage bag. Let's see if this one has a heater in it. Yes, it does. Let's look at the heater first. These are pretty cool. This is a heater for the MRE. There's instructions on there. But basically, what you do is you tear the top off of this and you put about 1 ounce of water. don't overfill them. It's very easy, and that's a mistake most people make. They overfill these bags. And you only want to put enough water. There's a line on here, right here, where you put the water in. And then you take your main entree, which is here, and you put it in here, and you would put it back in your MRE bag. Now there's a chemical reaction that's going to happen in this bag here, and this is going to get really hot, about 180, 190 degrees. And with this against it, it's going to actually heat up your meal. So leave it in there for about 5 or 6 minutes, and you're going to have a hot meal when you eat this. Another trick with these, a lot of people, out of habit, when they cut this, they'll cut it across the top here, and it's very hard to get down here. Don't do it that way. Either cut it across this way or cut it across this way. I like to cut it right here, and there is a tab to show you where to cut it. It's a lot easier to open it up and eat it this way, or cut it here and eat it this way, right out of here. They do give you a spoon. I give you a lot of other stuff in here. You have some cheese spread. They give you cornbread in here, so you can put some cheese spread on your cornbread. You get pepperoni pizza cheese crackers in here. You get some vegetable crackers, beverage-based powder, lemon lime, and you get some treats in here too. You get sugar, you get some chewing gum. I'm not taking this out because I'm going to use this as a demo for my classes too, so they can see what's in here. You get a pack of matches and towelettes in here. And this is a bag you would put water in and put your beverage mix in, so you can, instead of a cup, you have this here. So that's what all goes into an MRE. So it's a full meal. Like I said, a little pricey. Say roughly a little under $10 a meal, but it'll be a hot meal. And if you want to go with MREs for an emergency, you can. Like I said, a lot of people make fun of the taste of the food. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. If you get the old ones from bygone days, they were bad. But if they look like this, I think they're more than edible.
Paul said the salt for the fishing is actually processed out of seawater, so it's all kept local and on a fairly small scale.
Yeah, back in the days, salt was at a premium, and by the old days, I mean 1700s. Salt was a real commodity, and if you think about it, there were salt mines, I guess, but the main way to get salt was to take seawater, evaporate the water, and you're left with salt. And there was a couple ways they did that. They made, like, at high tide, they would let the water come in and then dam it off and have the water there, and then have the sun evaporate the water. But I know in Ohio they had some salt licks, and they would have the settlers come and just have big pots, and they would just boil that water coming out of those salt licks, the salt water, to get salt. So it was really at a premium. So, okay, lastly, if you want, in my opinion, a very, very good meal, this is one of the best. This is Mountain House. Mountain House has a whole line of dinners. Here I have just a few of them. This is chicken teriyaki, macaroni and cheese, a breakfast skillet, and in there is kind of all mixed up hash browns, scrambled eggs, mixed with pork sausage, patties, peppers, and onions. Chicken and mashed potatoes. And if you wanted a little less than is in here, they have what's called a Pro Pack, and it's vacuum packed. So if you're a backpacker and you're really concerned about space, you can get these. They're a little more expensive. You get a little less food, but you can see they take up a little less space. It depends what you're after. So, personally what I do, those of you that know me know I eat a lot. So this actually is bordering on too much food, even for me. Here's my, so the way you prepare this is you open up the bag, you get 2 cups of hot water, pour it in the bag, leave it sit for 4 minutes, take your spoon, stir it up after 4 minutes, leave it sit for another 6 minutes, and it's all rehydrated, and it honestly tastes like a home-cooked meal. But, like I said, I'll show you what it looks like inside here. Naturally, I use my knife to open this, but we're civilized here at home. They have an oxygen absorber in here that you take out, throw away. So here's what it looks like. Coming out here. You get a shot of that? That's a chicken teriyaki. Okay? So, like I said, I would take 2 cups of these, put it in there if I wanted to eat the whole thing. What I do, I like to repackage things. So I have these 4x6 reclosable 4 mil plastic bags. So I found that I can take the contents of this and fill up 2 of these bags. And notice I label them. Those of you that took the class know I'm a real fan of labeling things. Label them so I know what they are. So I'll put half, and I'll weigh this out. So I put exactly half in this bag, half in this bag, which means I know that all I need to do is put this in my mess container, and this will take 1 cup of water, 1 cup of hot boiling water, and so will this. So this is really two dinners for me when I'm on the trail. So I'll just dump this in, add 1 cup of water, wait the 10 minutes, and I have my dinner.
So would you say someone who doesn't eat like you do, maybe you could get 3 meals out of that?
Yeah, possibly.
2 for sure, 3 maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. Because one of these, I won't be full. I mean, I won't be saying, gee, I'm stuffed. I'll be neutral. I won't be hungry by no means, but it'll be a good feeling. I'll say, okay, I don't want any more, but so for 2 meals. And remember, if you're in the woods, you're always grazing along the way. You're going to see that wood sorrel. You're going to see, other things that you're going to be munching on. You're going to see a basswood tree take a couple leaves. And so you're going to kind of be snacking all day on the natural stuff. So this much is going to be plenty. And if you are hungry, then you can just take a second one. But I don't ever remember me eating both of them.
Wendy'd like to know what the shelf life of those are.
Of this, in the bags like this, I think they put them at 20 years. I would be personally comfortable with longer, but 20 years. And the price of these, they range anywhere from $6 to $7, roughly in that range, Mountain House. Mountain House is, in my opinion, one of the best. There's other places that sell freeze-dried food, but don't have buckets like that bucket I was showing you before, but that will be all of one thing. They might have a bucket that big, all of one macaroni and cheese, or a bucket of something else. So if you're feeding a large family or something, that might be appropriate. They also came out about 2 or 3 years ago with a freeze dryer for commercial or for residential use. It's about as big as a refrigerator, a college dorm refrigerator. In the past, they used to be $20,000. This one was about $3,000. It had a container inside about this big, so you couldn't get a lot of food in there, but it freeze-dried food just like this. It was a commercial grade for residential use. Now I think the price is down to around $2,200. So it's still pretty expensive, probably not cost effective when you can get a lot of meals like this at $7 a piece for $2,200. It'd be a lot of fun though, and maybe you can go in with a few of your friends and stuff. But it had to draw the temperature down to like 40 degrees below zero in order to freeze dry the food. So it was a sophisticated machine. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the company's name, but I'll find out and I'll post that on Facebook tomorrow. Anybody have any questions out there? Oh, one other thing about chicken eggs I just thought of. You probably know this, but if you have chickens, or know somebody that has chickens, as long as you don't wash the eggs when the chicken lays them, you don't have to refrigerate them for weeks on end. The act of washing the egg actually does something, and you now have to keep the egg refrigerated. But if you just take the egg from under the chicken and maybe knock off any of the really nasty stuff and don't wash it, you can just leave it in a basket on your kitchen table for weeks, and it does not have to be refrigerated. Online, there's also a way to preserve chicken eggs with lye. I read the article. We've never tried it, so I'm not going to vouch for it, how well it works, but you might want to Google that too. But I've heard of that method. Anybody else have any ways of preserving food out there? I've always wanted to preserve bacon by getting a small barrel and laying some lard down and putting meat, and lay another layer of lard, put meat down. I've heard of that. There's also salt rubs or curing rubs. You would have to get a piece of ham, for example, from a butcher. It can't be from a grocery store because that has been cured already to some degree. But if you get a raw piece of pork, you can go, it's called quick cure. Instructions are right on the box. And basically what you do is you rub this in, and then you put it in your refrigerator for several days, take it out, rub some more of this quick cure in, which is a majority of salt and a few other things. And you do that 2 or 3 times, and it'll be a salt cured piece of pork that does not have to be refrigerated. And basically what you're doing, you guessed it, you're taking the water out, you're taking the moisture out of the meat. Now, I did mention smoking does not preserve meat. It will add flavor to the meat, and if you do smoke it, it can take some of the water out. But again, smoking is more for adding flavor. If you dry meat, like dry that ham, like I said, and you want to put it in a smoker, that would add more flavor to the meat. You can always do that. But when you're talking about making beef jerky, that smoke is just to keep the flies away.
And Frank would like to know if you've ever dehydrated eggs.
No, I haven't dehydrated eggs. I've tried it, Frank. But if you want excellent, and I mean excellent, dehydrated eggs, there's the brand is called Ova Easy, O-V-A Easy. Again, look it up online. Most dehydrated eggs taste like, however, Ova Easy eggs, they taste identical to freshly scrambled eggs. They're awesome. Ova Easy eggs.
Paul also, so he asked if you've tried fruit leather, and that's what you were
Yeah.
talking about
Yep.
when you were talking about the dehydrator.
Yep.
He's always got a stash of them, like hawthorn or crab apples work great.
If you take applesauce from the grocery store, you're gonna be amazed how much sugar's in it. I have a sweet tooth, it's almost too sweet for me. The applesauce is really sweet. Like I said, doing it yourself, if you're gonna do it from your garden, you're gonna have to wanna can it. If you're doing meat, you're gonna can it or dehydrate it. But there is a question I'd like to ask everyone. Do you know what the best way to preserve meat is? The very best? And I'll give you some time to write in.
Nathan says eating it.
Eating it. That's the answer for water. That's one of my trick questions in class. What's the best way to carry water? And it's in your stomach. So that's what we do up on our main trips. If we know we're going out for a long day's hike, before we leave, we tank up on water before Ray and I leave. We don't recommend this to our students, but we can go pretty much all day without drinking water. But you have to tank up pretty good in the morning. Any answers on the best way to preserve meat? I'm afraid when I tell them I'm going to lose a bunch of subscribers to the channel.
Derek says keep the animal alive.
You got it. He gets the prize. That's the correct answer. You keep the animal alive. And this was made very clear when we went down to Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home. Right behind his house there, he had a pond made. And it was for keeping fish. And when he had his servants go fishing, they went down to the lake and they caught the fish that were there. They kept them alive and they brought them back up to the house and they released them in this fairly large pond. And when Mr. Jefferson wanted a fish dinner, they went in there with a net, scooped up a couple fish for him, filleted them right there, and cooked them, and he had fresh fish. So that's the very best way to preserve the meat, is to keep it alive. So he gets the prize for that. And that's another trick question in one of our classes. So it makes sense though. But now you have to feed them and whatnot and pen them, and so it's more of a problem. Anyone else out there? Okay, well we can end a little earlier. Like I said, we have some classes. We have a few spots left in our weekend survival class coming up in May. Off the top of my head, May 23rd, I believe. And we have spots open in our 6-day survival class, June 12th, I believe it is, the week of June 12th. It'll be nice and warm, and so if you're interested in taking the 6-day, and people always ask, what's the difference between the weekend class and the 6-day class? The best way I can describe it is going down to Disney World. You can probably get through the entire complex in one day, but if you spend 3 days or 4 days there, you're going to see a lot more, take in a lot more, and have more experiences. So, but if you only have 1 day down there and you want to see Disney World, you got to take it all in one day. But if you have the luxury of 3 or 4 days, you probably want to spend 3 or 4 days there. Same thing with the survival class. If all you have is a weekend available because of other commitments, family obligations, and you want to know the basics of survival, get a good taste of it, and you resign yourself, you're going to have to put some dirt time in once you leave the class to get proficient, the weekend class is fine. If you have the time to want to really get good at the skills at the class where you have instructors helping you, the 6-day class might be the one you want to take.
So Paul mentioned that you can preserve mushroom cultures for quite a long time, and he's been doing that recently for growing down the line.
Really? That's kind of interesting. I'm wondering if there's anything online on that, or if he's got any information on that. I've never heard of that. If he does, Paul, could you drop me a link or a line at tom@survivalschool.com? I'd be interested in knowing more about that because I know nothing about that. That's the first I've heard of it. It's kind of cool. I love learning about new stuff.
He says they can be grown and dehydrated like jerky. The same thing is true of wild mushrooms, of course.
Oh, cool. That would be cool to cultivate them on your own. I love learning from you guys. I tell you, you guys have a wealth of knowledge, and that's cool. Okay, well, with that, I'll close out today's session. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back here again in 2 weeks. Hopefully the weather's going to cooperate so we can get outside and do a little more stuff because kind of limited here inside the house. But the weather's getting warm here in Cleveland, Ohio, and we'll be getting outside soon. So thanks for joining us, and if you have any ideas of things you want to see, drop me a line. So until next time, see you.